Hello, everybody, and welcome to Marcy Bond's Publishing Lounge. I am Marcy Bond, of course, your host. I am the founder and CEO of Wild Child Publishing and Freya's Bower, both are publishing houses. And Rob Roy McCandless, Matt Campbell, aka John Carlin Shea. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Shea? And Shauna Wolf or S.R. Howen are all authors for Wild Child Publishing. As well as Sean, S.R. Howen. Sean is one of our awesome editors. And I would like each of them to, starting with Rob and then Sean and then Matt, to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves and what they do.
Thanks, Marcy. Good afternoon to everyone. I am R.A. McCandless. I am an urban fantasy author of Tears of Heaven and Hell Becomes Her. And Hell Becomes Her is the new release, and a lot of short stories.
Okay, be sure in the sideline to type in where they can find you in case you want to sell your books.
I have no idea where to find me.
That's right. You're just the talent, not the tech. What's that noise?
What's that?
Okay, and I don't know. There's some noise in the background.
I don't know. It keeps making a strange noise, here too.
So Sean, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Sean Howen, and I've actually been, like Marcy said, with Wild Child since about 99 or 2000, I think.
Yes.
I was living in Germany at the time, so that's quite a while ago. I have 5 books out and a couple more contracted. I'm also an editor. I like working with new authors who are just starting out and watching people's skill and talent grow and bringing their story to life from that talent. You can have talent, but you have to learn to use the tools. You can't build a roof if you don't know how to use a hammer, and you need to learn to use those tools, and that's one of the things I really like doing, is teaching authors to use the tools to get their vision on the page.
And she's fabulous at it, by the way.
Agreed.
So Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Matt Campbell, and I'm writing as John Carlin Shea, and I've been writing fantasy for about 20 years. Does it count if it's all the same project? It counts, right?
It counts.
The Chosen of the Light series, which began as one massive book. I published the first book 2 years ago under Spirit Summoner, and then Soul Seekers just came out yesterday. So, and book 3's on its way.
Awesome. Do you know an ETA on book 3?
I'd guess if it's anything based like this last one, probably another year or 2.
Great. Well, great. Well, I say great, but I have a feeling that your authors or your fans are not going to be so happy about that.
I know. Sorry, fans.
Okay. So I want to know, first off, Rob, what got you started in writing, but how was the process different in writing? And did you have a different idea of what the editing was going to be like?
Oh, yeah. The editing process was a real eye-opener for me. I'd been writing creatively for 15, 20 years before Wild Child picked me up. And I knew Sean and worked with Sean, but didn't know how awesome Sean was until we got to editing. And then it was like, oh, you can be a better writer if you're shown the way. So listening to what Sean had to say and how it all came together, it was totally different than just sitting down and pounding out a book. That's just not how it works. So when I wrote Hell Becomes Her to follow up on Tears of Heaven, it was a different process. I involved a whole beta team And I asked Sean tons of questions throughout, but I took a lot of the notes that she had given to me on Tears and applied them. And I think I got a much better product overall, which is what the feedback has said as well.
Well, I'm not surprised. She wields a hammer sometimes, but she always means it in a good way.
In a good way.
In a good way. And by the way, I actually read Hell Becomes Her, and now I have to read Tears of Heaven. And I wish that I could review it, but I can't because it would be viewed not so kosher, I guess.
Little bias.
A little
Impartial?
I'm not impartial.
Just a little.
Well, no, I will be honest with you. Even on our books, I'm very tough. You know, so some books I like some books better than others. Urban fantasy is not necessarily what I would normally read, but I had found when I went to format, I had just found something, and there was, I don't know, it was formatting. I don't know what it was. And so then I had to go through the entire manuscript because
I know what it was.
You remember what it was?
I know what it was. Yes, it was a semicolon.
Yes. Oh, that's right. It was a semicolon. See, I'm so anal. I had to go through the entire book before it could be finished, and before I could, So, yeah, we really. Yeah, I mean, I have spent all-nighters sometimes if I find something. It's like, oh, the next day it releases and I see something, I'll spend an all-nighter reading 90,000 words in order to get it perfect. So, and it's usually not perfect because I'm human. But so, yes, I read Your Hell Becomes Her, and now it's like, well, I have to read Tears of Heaven. And I hate you, Rob. I haven't read yours yet, Matt.
That's that backhanded compliment that writers love to get. That
yeah,
stay up all night. Oh.
No, I didn't stay up for yours. I stayed up for others because it wasn't.
The ending. It's the ending she was upset about.
I was like, damn it! Now I have to read 3. I have to read the 3rd, and he hasn't written it yet. So, and by the way, Matt, do you think my daughter is really? She's 11 and a half, but she loves Percy Jackson and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Do you think? And she's. Yours actually, I know it's a YA fantasy, epic fantasy. I think that she'd be into it, but I'm concerned because I haven't read it, whether it might be a little scary or is it on the scale of Percy Jackson? Because there's some violent stuff going on in Percy Jackson. And if it is, then that's something she could handle, and I'd totally give it to her.
It's certainly on that scale. There's nothing over the top. I mean...
It's not Game of Thrones.
It's not.
We're not going for the Red Wedding,
Okay. Okay. I wouldn't give her Game of Thrones, obviously.
No. I kind of have a pretty broad audience in mind when I write, so I don't particularly go super violent, or I don't think I go sexy at all. Do I, Sean?
No. It's as they like to say, it's a clean book. I don't like that term used for any kind of sexy stuff in a book, but I would give it to an 11-year-old. I would give it to a 10-year-old to read. It's a book that an adult can pick up and read and very much enjoy, and at the same time, a 10 or 11-year-old can pick it up and enjoy it. I think more along the lines of maybe Christopher Poloni, as far as that level goes.
Okay, great. Well, then I know I will definitely be giving that to her. And ironically, we publish a lot primarily in ebook, and she likes print. So I will be. So print is awesome. All of yours are in print. I almost when I read Hell Becomes Her, I thought, she'd probably like this too because she's really into mythology. And she's starting to correct me now. I don't know how much I like that, but
that's your own fault. You have a child. That's your fault. It's your genetics.
It's true. I correct her. She corrects me. I guess it runs in the family.
Comes back around.
So, so now, Sean, you also write, and you do have a fantasy series, but you also write some other series. But let's talk about your fantasy series first.
The Wizard's Heart, writing as S.R. Howen. I wrote that one. If you remember, that was back when Wild Child was a magazine, and we were writing it as a serial story. So the trick for turning that one into a book was taking all of these monthly parts and putting them together into a novel. And I found a lot of things that I was like, okay, this isn't very consistent. How did I this inconsistency get by? So it was quite the twists and turns in it. It's a more classic type of fantasy, but not like what Matt writes or what Rob writes. It's not really urban fantasy. It is set in a made-up world, but it's not as traditional as what Matt writes either. Matt's is closer to Lord of the Rings kind of feeling to it, in an epic scope that way. But Wizard's Heart it's got some romance, but it's not predominantly a romance book. It's not a Shauna Wolf title, so you're not gonna get any graphic sex in it. And the second book, I'd be happy. That's what I did for Nano. Was working on the second book.
Okay. I've been waiting for the second book impatiently.
I've been trying to get other people's projects finished before I work on mine, and I'm almost there. So, it's an interesting story. I've had a few reviews that compared it to Harry Potter because there's wizards and magic in it.
It's not remotely like
a lot
Harry
of it was
Potter,
based.
though.
No, but I had a few reviews that mentioned it, so it was kind of odd. It was actually based on when I was living in Germany. We went downtown in a city called Kaiserslautern, and they had these gypsies downtown, and they had these beautiful wagons. And this is what these people lived in. They actually lived in them, so it wasn't a show kind of thing. And they had these little ponies, and you'd give them a few marks, and they'd ride your child, walk with your child riding on that pony up and down the street. And most of the time they didn't talk to the tourists. They just kind of ignored them. They took your money and, they watched you, and you got that feeling like eyes in the back of your head kind of thing staring at you. And I just started talking to them. And they had a camp out near the town that I lived in at the time, and I actually spent a couple days out there. Wow. And so it was pretty interesting, and that's where that story grew from, was some of their legends and little bits that they talked about. And of course my German isn't very good, and they didn't speak German anyway. They spoke some odd dialect. But it was a very interesting story that grew out of it. So it is based on a group of gypsies in Germany called the Zingari. So
interesting. Now, Matt, I didn't get to ask you, was the editing process, your first book, how was the editing process of your first book different from the editing process of your second book?
Wait, I heard stories.
There was a ton of, I think there was a pretty huge learning curve the first time around versus the second time around. And once I kind of had all those lessons in mind, the second book was a lot smoother in terms of just the flow of editing all together. And Sean is an amazing editor, and I think I've learned more from Sean in 3 years of working with her than I have in my entire life writing.
Well, thank you.
But amazing experience, and the second book was just a lot smoother.
Obviously, I have Anonymous calling me. I don't know who it is, and I won't be answering because it's anonymous. So we get a lot of these anonymous calls. I've stopped answering now. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it just kept ringing. I don't know if it was coming over and you could hear my phone ringing in the background.
It was.
Yay! So
loud and clear.
Yeah, it seemed like Sean's edits moved much quicker because she she kept me in the loop as far as where she's at when she's working with you guys. Now, did you find it different from the first book to the second book as well, Rob, with the editing?
Yeah, I think the first one, Sean really had to like point out the big problems that new writers always face. Jumping point of view, that's a big one. You should never jump point of view in the middle of a scene, but writers seem to like to do that to present some information that they feel is lacking. Mm-hmm. And that has to either come out somewhere else or it has to come from somewhere else. But that's something that a lot of new writers, and I see it when I'm doing beta reads, they jump point of view, they do head jumping. So that was a big one, and Sean points that out, and then a lot of other stuff, and we had little fights here and there, and I'm like, oh, but this is what I mean, and she's like, yeah, but your readers won't get it, and I think that was the strongest line that Sean ever gave me. If your readers don't get it, it doesn't matter what you meant.
It's
and after
true.
that, I don't think I fought Sean nearly as much. Like she said, your readers are going to be confused. I was like, okay, it's gone. So that became a lot of the driving force when I wrote the second book, because one thing, like Sean is suddenly over my shoulder and she's hovering, watching me write, and she's like, you can't do that. And so when I passed her the actual manuscript, like I think it was a lot cleaner for her to go through.
Did you kind of have the same thing, Matt? Oops, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, like Sean said, was you can't do that, Matt.
You can't see it, but up above my desk, I have all these sticky notes of like little lessons that Sean has taught me, disembodied parts and filter words, and yeah, it's Sean.
Yeah, we don't want to get into the filter words, right?
The list of filter. I have my own list. I have the same thing. I have a list of filter words, and before I pass Sean anything, I go through that list and eliminate as many as possible. So yeah, it's a big list, but it's got to be done.
Well, everyone.
I think one of the things.
Go ahead, Sean.
Well, I think one of the things between a first book and a second book or a third book working with somebody is by the second book, I can put the little comment out of the side, and all I can write in there is fix. Yeah, because it's something that we've talked about and we've gone over, and all it needs is the attention drawn to it. And most of my authors can then fix it. They know what I mean. And if they don't, I always have my phone with me. I try to be there to help whenever they need help, whether they're writing a new book or whether they're working on a book that we're working on at that time. That makes that second edit go a lot faster, just because you can go through and they know what you mean most of the time.
Yeah, the little notes are fun. She fix, and you're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, well, it looks like Matt is having some issues. He has a poor internet signal. I don't know if maybe he needs to go out and come. Oh, there you are. You disappeared there for a while. Yes, you are.
I'm kind of in a corner of the house where I don't get the best internet.
Oh, well, it happens.
Yeah.
Well, I was glad that it wasn't windy tonight. We had to switch to satellite internet, and we're getting better speeds on it. But when it's windy out or storming, it doesn't run the best.
Yeah, I would imagine not. As long as you don't have a fan that drops down from your ceiling with maggot-like worms from it. I had a nightmare the other night that I was visiting Sean, and that was what happened. The ceiling was fine, then it bulged, and down came this fan, and it was spinning, and it had maggot-like tiny little worms all over it. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? And Sean's like, well, you can sleep here. And I'm like, yeah, no. I think I'll go let's go to a hotel, honey. I don't want it was just the weirdest dream. And
well,
It was so bizarre.
UPS doesn't even come to the door here. They have started leaving things at the mailbox 600 feet down the road. They don't even come up to the door. So they used to come up to the door, you know. They don't anymore. And I promise there's no maggots.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there wasn't. This was more like it was a haunted house. You know, yeah, writing prompt, totally, Rob. You know, it was like it was a haunted house, and something you'd see in the movies. So yeah, that was fun. And I've never even been to your house, so I know it wasn't your house. It was just the mind had made something weird up.
Sean is her own worst enemy in her house. The rise in the carpeting it's too much for her to handle.
No, she said you can sleep in the dining room where the demon is. No.
A bunch of the demons in the laundry room, you know, Zool lives in there, so you know.
Oh gosh. No, I met you, Sean, through Wild Child. That was it was the end of 1999, wasn't it?
And I actually think that we met, I think, through Writers' Right, the old Writers' Right board.
Around 2000. I was in Michigan.
With. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
We were all on that same forum. And
That's
messing
right.
around, playing around, not knowing what. I didn't know what I was doing. You guys knew what you were doing. I didn't know what I was doing.
We just looked like it.
I remember arguments I had with Sean, and now it's like, you were so wrong. Sean's like, you need to get this book. And I'm like, who needs a book to learn to write? And then later I've got the book.
I remember that.
Yeah, I know, right? Eidetic memory over there. So, yeah. Sean, I might be like
I could
10
probably
years
repeat
ahead
some of the
career.
conversations verbatim, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's sometimes it's annoying, Sean. I'm just gonna say.
Okay, sorry.
She's like, remember when you said this?
I realize that people find that annoying, and people that have had actual real arguments with me, and they'll say, I told you blah, blah, blah before, and I can mimic the hand gestures, the tone of voice, the body language, the whole thing, and I go, no, you said this, and blah, 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 and they're like, I hate that.
I just have a running apology for Sean now. Just, you're right, I was wrong.
Well, I remember that for a while we thought you were dead. Someone told us that Rob had died, Matt. And
Well, they actually sent a copy of an obituary for Provo, Utah, that was a Rob Roy McCandless, and it was about the right age.
So weird.
And you didn't answer emails that anybody sent, and the phone number that I had no longer worked. It was kind of like, I has a sad, you know.
we were really sad because we published some of your short stories. I'm like, gosh, I can't believe it. He was so young.
yeah, 10, 15 years ago.
You died in a traffic accident, if that's any consolation. You know?
Yeah.
No,
So it's nice to know.
That was shocking. So when I found Sean through Facebook and reached out, and she's like, oh my God, you're alive. And I'm like, I didn't know I was dead. So.
Well, I don't know if the fact that you were still alive or that you were married with kids. I don't know which was more shocking.
Yeah. Married with kids. That's me. Yeah. Yeah. I was footloose and fancy free in Michigan, and then band's 10 years, and I'm married with kids.
Wow.
Well, notice I didn't say married with children, you know.
Yeah. I'm not
Have we lost Matt?
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, that sucks. So Matt can't hear anything you're saying, Sean. And you can't read lips, Matt.
Great.
Oh, that sucks.
It's all about
I can't even see her.
It's all about you.
The audio and video are both off for her, so
Oh.
I hope she's not talking to
okay.
me.
It's all
No,
snappy.
we've been...
Well, I was just blabbing, you know.
So, Matt, you have been working on Welcome Libby 2000. You've been working on The Chosen of the Light for the past 20 years.
Well, I kind of started in different phases, but the novel itself, I finished like 2006 or 2007.
Wow.
So, and it was just one giant novel, and I tried chopping it around, and it's funny, nobody wants to publish a 300,000 word novel for a new author. So I can't remember who gave me the advice to break it up, but ultimately that's what I did, and published the first third as Spirit Summoner, and or started shopping it, and Wild Child picked it up.
Yeah, I'm glad we did too.
Thank you.
I know when Sean read it, I remember when I read it, I went, oh, and then Sean read it. She said, no, this is perfect epic fantasy. I want it. Let me edit it. And I'm like, please, you can edit it. Only because she's a master at a lot of things. One of them being fantasy. Can you hear me, Sean?
Yes.
Okay, good. That delay scared me there for a second. Oh, yes, I remember. The first story we printed of you was The Forge.
Forge, yep.
Remember?
It came from 12th World, right.
It came from 12th World, and it was part of The Forge, right?
Well, we all have a story.
Yeah,
we all have a
12th
book
World.
we wrote before we wrote our book, right? I assume, Matt, I assume your book is the first book.
No, there was a book before that. We don't talk about that.
There was always we don't talk about.
Yeah.
It goes on the shelf, goes under the trunk. Yeah.
Goes in the circular file, right?
Yeah,
it's somewhere.
Yeah.
It's holding up the chair. There.
It's propping up the chair. That's how big it is. The trunk, the closet novel, the one you could brain your spouse with if you got mad enough, right? Or a burglar.
And
you
actually,
probably wouldn't do your spouse, but maybe a burglar.
Yeah, I'd probably go burglar. She's watching, so
I
can't say your spouse. Oh, and she just gave
I've worked on 12th World, so.
Oh, have you?
I have worked. Yeah, I have, and
What's that?
Looking at it, the extreme 600,000 word epic fantasy 12th World. Forge came out of that. A little bit of Zingari, came out of that. The healer aspect where she couldn't control her healing gift. But I've added to 12th World. It's probably about 800,000 words now. And I've been working on it and dividing it up.
Okay,
but that's the problem.
George Martin over here.
Dividing it up.
800,000 words.
Yeah.
800. War and peace, right?
Yeah.
They say everybody has to write 1 million words of crap before they write good stuff. So.
Oh, God.
So perhaps it's still manure and we just don't know it.
Well, that's the thing, right? You get locked into a concept, and if you can't step back from it, it could be crap, and you're just locked into that. That's one of the things I really love about having
I had a beta reader. Yeah, I had a couple beta readers read, and they got up to the one woman that was reading it, she actually got up to about 400,000 words of what I was editing and fixing. And the things that I've been editing and fixing, it's funny because I wrote that so long ago. I started that in the 80s on a manual typewriter, and a lot of it I wrote out by hand. Wow. A lot of the things that are in there that I'm finding, and I'm going, wow, look at all the head hopping. Look at all the filter words. Look at all the...
Well, I have a contemporary erotic romance coming out January 1st, and it's a little novella, and I wrote it for another publisher because it was that whole story, if any of you had read it, where we were sitting around at Epicon and just shooting the breeze, and that's a polite way of saying it. And and we jokingly said, we should write for each other. And then we're like, yeah, because we have time. And so then over the summer, I wrote this little novella and I submitted it. And then I was like, are they going to accept it? We're good friends. What if they really don't like it? And my writing is crap. And
What if
they
it's
say
just them
no.
being friendly the whole time? Yeah.
And they're just, how do you do it? If they say, oh, we heard a lot about her, but she's really awful writer. So you just never
Great
know.
to drink with. Lovely.
So one of the comments that I had, great to drink with, right? Yeah. The only way we would accept this is if we were so drunk. Anyway, so then she wrote this comment. You're in love with the word couch. And she highlighted, why do we have couch in here all over the place, right? And she was right.
Oh, wow.
In one paragraph, because it was a description, in one paragraph there were like 4 or 5 instances of couch. And I went, oh my God, okay, maybe the title should be Mr. Hotness on the Couch or something, just because the whole, it was like, and I found another instance of couch. I'm like, oh my God, there's couch everywhere. So anyway.
Is that happy memories or just fantasy?
Well, we aren't going there, and I'm not sharing any of it. Based on reality. Yeah, this is a family show, and I'm not going to share that. So
I tend to fall in love with words like just and that.
Oh, hey, just is a fine word, all right? One of my favorites.
Well, which I was going to say.
I know.
Do you have a favorite word there, Matt?
A favorite word?
Yes.
I've got a few. At once is a phrase I've been known to use over and over and over and over again. I got a few up here.
Looking it up, yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna stick with that
at
once.
At once. I would say is the one that.
At once.
Well,
that's a good one.
Or
That
began
one's
to.
good. Yeah, again.
Began to, yeah.
Began to is another one that I see in a lot of authors writing, not just you guys.
And then.
But the whole.
And
then they began to at once. Yeah.
It's like began to.
Yeah.
How do you begin to do something without doing it? I mean, sometimes began does work, but
if it gets interrupted, they can begin to do something, and then.
Wait a minute. This sounds like Sean. Wait, is that what Sean tells you? That sounds exactly like what she would say.
Yep.
Well, that and eyes.
I can remember putting that in a few comments.
Eyes were my
What was he?
favorite. I loved eyes did everything, right? You flick your eyes onto somebody. You can't. That's disgusting.
They could roam around the room.
Roll around the room.
Roam around the room.
Oh, I did everything with eyes, and then it just kind of ruined my whole. Not only did it ruin the way I write, it ruined the way I read. Sean has ruined the way I read.
Did you find that to be true too, Matt?
Yeah. Even like I love Stephen King's The Dark Tower series, and he has. Sean would have chewed him up and spit him out.
Some of my favorite authors. I'm like, you can't do that. Sean says.
Well, Stephen King also head hops a lot. He even tells you things from the point of view of the hedgehog before the dome cuts it in half. So I mean, Yeah. I kind of, and I have had, authors who said, why, this famous author does this, why can't I do it? And you know what my response is to that? You're not famous yet.
When you're Stephen King, you can do anything you want.
Yeah, when you're Stephen King or R.R. Martin, or you can do anything you want.
Before that.
You know what, though?
Before that, we need to get you famous.
Well, you know, though, the thing is that once they get accustomed to you writing well, if you start doing all of that stuff, then you're going to have people who get disappointed with your writing. And, you know, that's happened with a number of well-known authors. Where, you know, a lot of their fans will say, I loved her up until this point, or I loved him up until this point. But then something happened and the writing just wasn't as crisp. The stories just weren't as good. It felt like the plots were being shuffled. You know, she was just reshuffling the plots or he was just reshuffling the plots. So it's really, it's hard, I think, as authors to stay on top of the game and keep doing, you know, not, like I said, not reshuffling your plots. So it doesn't seem like you're reading the same book, just different characters. I think that's a big challenge as an author. Do you have any tricks of how you do that, Sean? Oh! Kitty.
Oh, I know what it is. Okay.
That's awesome. I see you had a visitor.
I think because of the way I write. I don't really end up with that a lot. I don't start out with anything. I don't have any plan, any kind of plot. I don't even think 5 words ahead of what I'm writing. I just write it. And I don't usually end up with repeating the same story. I have to watch in a particular book for repeating the same actions, like, you know, the eyes roaming around the room, doing everything with the eyes. I'll find that I'm repeating the same gestures over and over and over again, and I'll have to go back and say, no, they got to do something else. You know. But as far as plot lines go, I don't tend to lather, rinse, repeat on them. But I've read books where they do, and I can also tell when I'm reading a series of books by an author when they changed editors. And I think that's what I see. I was reading a series of mystery books. She never had any sex in the book. She never had any swearing. And she got to about book 15 or so, and she's at book 25 now. And all of a sudden, there was swearing, and things changed a little bit. And she started using filter words. And I think that comes from switching editors, actually.
So, Rob, are you a pantser or a plotter?
Oh, by the pants. By the pants, absolutely. And that's not to say that I do anything better than anyone else. I didn't intend to write that way. That's just how things come. And it just works out better for me. My plot tends to, as I'm working it out, I can explore 18 different paths until I find one that really works with the story that I'm trying to tell and the characters I'm trying to create. And that's what really drives it. Will the characters do this? Is this something the characters would do? Not that the plot would drive them into this, but rather the characters make decisions and then events happen around them.
And how about you, Matt? Are you a pantser, a plotter?
Absolutely a plotter. I got to have my head wrapped completely around the story before I start. Every time I kind of I do like to just write a lot of times. But yeah, if I don't have my head wrapped around the story, it does not come together well for me.
I've tried plotting, and then what ends up happening is I guess I have a short attention span. and so once I've plotted it out, it's like, oh,
once you know where it goes, I don't want to tell that.
I don't feel like telling the story anymore. So, but
There's
sometimes.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, there's definitely times when things do kind of take a fly by the seat of your pants sort of direction with my writing, but yeah, a lot of it is I have all the details mapped out. So,
or I think I have all the details mapped out, and my characters decide I don't, and take it in a completely different direction, then is that Kitty trying to come back into? Yes.
Did you guys catch that? Yeah.
It says, I see the little tail waving back and forth. And this little
She was
hand.
going to go
I'm
right
surprised
across.
I haven't had
Yeah,
a
so-
cat mastery. You know?
Whoops, we lost Rob. Where did Rob go?
Oops. What time is his
I
what
can
time
hear
is
you
his
guys.
book signing tonight?
Yeah, well, it doesn't even.
Oh,
My-
Oh,
okay.
that's really bizarre. Okay, so it shows that we have an open seat, but we can still hear you. Well, maybe you need to sign back in, sign out and sign back in. Not when I say that, I mean from your seat, Rob. Can you hear me, Rob?
Yes, I can hear you. I'll do that.
Okay.
I
still
think
don't
one
hear
of the
Sean.
thing that when you
It's frustrating.
oh sorry
That's really bizarre. You know, Rob has a book signing coming up tonight. So, are you going to be doing a book signing pretty soon, Matt?
You know, I'd have to talk to my promoter about that.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything scheduled as of yet. Definitely something in the works,
Oh, here
though.
we go. Here he comes. Is he back? I wonder why they put him up on the right-hand side and it's like everybody shuffles around.
Because I am
So-
awesome.
Yes, that's right. See, you're supposed to be next to me.
The top and on the right. That is Rob's place.
well I have this little information
Oh.
flag over the top of everybody's
Rob, are
face.
you doing
I don't
just
know
a
what
signing,
that's about, but
or
you know.
I mean, are you reading or anything like that?
I will do whatever they tell me to do.
Okay.
A friend of mine works for this comic book store, and she's like, "Oh, your book's coming out. I work for a comic book store. Come do a signing." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I've never done a signing. I don't know what I'm doing. So I went and looked up articles, and they're like, "Oh, signings are fun. Blah 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 blah." So, and then I asked, "Well, how many did you guys have at your last signing?" They're like, 4 people showed up. I'm like, "Okay, 4 people. That's a good bar. I think I can achieve 4 people." So, if they ask me to do a reading, I will do a reading. I got my box of books, my 2 boxes of books, and I'll take those boxes of books, and I got blue pens. I was told that don't use black. Apparently, people, when they look for signatures on books, they wanted to see a color, so I got blue, and they said the soft pen, so you don't push through into the rest of the book. So I did that, and yeah. I'll do whatever they tell me to do. I don't know about you, Matt, but it's like, please tell me how to market to you. I'll do it.
Suddenly, there's a picture on Facebook of Rob in his underwear.
Yeah. Please buy my book. Got a little crazy with it.
And they handed you a bow tie and a feather fan.
So why don't you tell us where you're going to be, and also put it in the side so that people, when, where, and how they can find you, so that if people want to come see you, not that Matt's going to be able to, unless my daughter asked me, if you could invent anything, what would you invent? And I said a teleporter. Right? So I could put the coordinates in to my mom's house, to Sean's house, to somebody's house, someplace, and just be there. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be it makes signings a lot easier. Apparently, a lot of people would come, but they're not in the area, so it's like, I don't know if they're just being polite or if they're just like, oh, I really want to go. So yeah, but I'm doing a signing at a shop called Quest. I love that name. There was a comic. There was a comic book and a small kids show called A World of Quest or something, and so I love that name. So it's a shop called Quest, and it's in downtown Redlands, California. The address is 5 East Citrus Street at Suite 101. If you're familiar at all with Redlands, it's beautiful. Downtown Redlands is just gorgeous. It's this quaint late 50s kind of a feel to it. It's so much fun. So, and I'll be there from it starts at 6, goes to 9. But I'm happy to wait longer. If the line is out the door, I will wait. No one will go away without a book signed. So, yeah. But so
that was one of the problems I ran into here. The BX on the Army Post does book signings, but they wanted you to have 500 books. And I was just like, what?
Let me just shelf out for that. No problem. Because if you could buy 500 books, we wouldn't be writers, right? Like we'd be promoting or something.
And when she first told me that, you need to have 500 books, I thought maybe, okay, the BX would buy those books because you find a lot of the books that authors have done signings on the shelves. So they do buy a percentage of the books, but not 500 of them.
That would be a bit of a challenge.
That's an outlay of cash. I think a lot of people don't understand that. Is that when if you get published, they just think that suddenly you're rolling in dough, and that's totally not the case. Even if you receive an advance, the advance is on potential sales, not like, oh, we're so glad you're talented, here's money. They don't just throw money at you. And so a lot of the authors, if you're not Stephen King or George R.R. Martin, a lot of that work falls on you, and rightly so. You're supposed to market yourself and create that. So you have authors like Kevin J. Anderson, great author, reasonably well known, works his butt off. All the stuff that he does all the time is just amazing. So, unless you're a first tier author, people don't come to you. You have to go to them.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah,
I think it's for most things in any type of the art field. And even if you're trying to get a job, you can't sit in your house and wait for employers to come knocking at your door. They're not going to find you unless you apply and let them know that you actually exist. So the same truth goes with anything. So you have to have a good idea of what you want. And then also you have to keep your focus, because unless you get lucky, it's going to take you at least a few years or more to really establish your name and get a fan base. And sometimes that can be discouraging, but those who don't get discouraged are usually the ones who do better. Now, I have behind me a book.
That's a pretty book. That's your book, Sean. I don't know if you can see it.
It says...
for some reason, there's a little...
I'm the only one out. No one told us.
Picture.
I didn't know we were all bringing our books. Book. Wow. You guys, where were the memos?
I told you to be ready. You should have had your books out.
Look at that. I am so not. I'm the worst.
Oh, look at you. Lifeline, Medicine Man 1.
Oh.
For those of you who don't know, Medicine Man 1 won the Epic ebook award.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago. It's a fabulous, fabulous book, if I do say so myself. I was the editor. Sean was the author, and I am waiting on book 3.
We're all waiting on book 3. Yeah. That's one of our. That's the conversation Sean and I no longer have. I'm like, how's it going? Oh, I hate you. Quit asking me.
I don't ask her either, but I am waiting. However, she's written book 2 for The Wizard's Heart, so I am happy about that. I've been waiting for that one too. But she's been busy editing, so I do understand, and I forgive you, Sean.
Well, I have books. I have my books that I edit. And they go from needing, just a little bit of tweaking. Maybe they're choking a little bit. They need a good slap on the back, to needing full-blown CPR. Everybody clear. Here we go. And unfortunately, those are the ones, that end up taking the most time and the most, not really effort, but a lot of effort on the author's part, because they are learning and they need to learn to apply this to their writing, and that's harder for some people than others. So my goal is to get my queue completely cleaned out so I can bring in some other books and then get mine done. So
we're all talking to each other. Blah, blah, blah.
Typing. We stopped talking all of a sudden.
Because Matt can't hear you.
Just breathing at each other.
Matt, I wonder if you didn't accidentally X her. Did you X her little speaker thing in the left-hand corner?
No, the speaker's showing good.
It just doesn't love you. Just no love in Mudville. Okay.
Or you could sign.
Yeah, like I said, I can't.
I was having a
really
lot of
see anybody
issues
because
with
this little
the video kept cutting in and out.
is over
and
the top
then
of
it finally
everybody's
leveled
face.
out. I can see you two just fine, hear you fine, but Sean's completely gone.
You're missing out. So
You are.
yeah.
Should I? I'm gonna try popping out and come back in.
You can, absolutely.
Okay.
I told you the first time I did this, my audio went completely out. And so my two guests are chatting away at each other, two other publishers, and they can't hear me, and I'm making faces at them. And I finally decide, you know what, I need to get out and get back in, which is what I did. And then everything fixed. So hopefully, just like it took you a few times to get in, Sean, this is a...
Well, because with that's one of the lovely disadvantages of being blind. This little flag came up, and then it disappeared, and I couldn't see what it said. So let's blow it up to 750% so I could see what it says. Then, of course, I've got to try to go to the other side of the screen as I'm scrolling across, looking for the words. It disappeared again. So I had to do it again, and then I said, oh, enable these devices. All right, where's that box? Oh, it's up over here. Move it way over here, then way over there, and back down here, and then it didn't work that time, so let's go back up over here and see. Oh, there's a drop-down box. Okay, that might be
Can you hear her now?
Yeah, everybody's back.
Yay!
Yeah.
Happy.
Great.
And we're 3/4 of the way through, so
And I'm orange again. I don't know if anyone noticed
You're
that.
orange again.
Oh, we did notice that. You're an Oompa Loompa.
Yeah. Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore.
Kind of the having lost about 75% of my vision makes editing a real picnic sometimes. They have not created a readback program that reads punctuation. So if you're listening to it, it just goes along, and then there's a pause between the sentences, just like somebody's talking. So I have to blow it up really huge, 750% at about 26 font, and then try to go through it to catch the punctuation that might be missed. That's how we ended up with the semicolon in math.
The infamous semicolon.
I can't see the difference
Was
between
it
a
mine?
period
Did
and
I
a
put a
comma.
semicolon in there, or did it just get dropped in? Was it just an error? That's funny, because I don't recall using semicolons very much at all, maybe.
No, and I always tell you guys not to use semicolons in fiction. They do a lot in British fiction. They use a lot of semicolons. Oh my gosh, I read this one British author and she'll have 3 in one sentence.
But the dash is okay, right? I have my little dash. M dash is okay, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, right.
The EM dashes are fine. I would rather an EM dash than that semicolon. A semicolon is used with a list, and it's more used in nonfiction because you do have a list. And it's like using brackets.
Oh no!
Or parentheses.
That was so weird.
Look weird in I've
fiction,
seen brackets
it's the weirdest
and
thing,
parentheses.
unless it's some kind of narrated thing where the author's going to actually talk to you, like what's his name, Discworld, Pratchett. Pratchett would talk to you sometimes. So. Right, and so you can forgive
Pratchett
that because
that.
that makes sense. In parentheses, he's like blah 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 blah. So that's but you're right. The parentheses always throw me if it's in anything serious. Like, really? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, and there's this odd thing going around that I don't know where it started. One of those little strange trends that I see is for them to go, he said, semicolon, and then they put the dialogue.
A semicolon?
I don't know where that's come from. And I have, a semicolon instead of, like they were writing a script.
Do they still use the
a
quotation
novel.
marks? Is it still quotation marks?
It's really odd.
Okay, because in The Road, Cormac McCarthy didn't use any quotation marks. It was so the dialogue was really, really interesting, and it was very hard to adapt to that. The story was so compelling, but it was hard to know when people were talking and when it was narration or part of the story. Really good book, but no quotation marks, and I think that was a a choice on McCarthy's part, because it really puts you off, and the whole world is supposed to put you off. But I haven't heard about the semicolon thing.
Yeah, that one's really odd. And the other one that I see a lot that has to do with Word's grammar checker is putting the question mark after the dialogue tag. Can we go to the park? John said, or John asked, and then they put the question mark after
I've
asked
seen that.
instead of in the quote. Word, if you run Word's grammar checker, it will actually tell you to do that.
Why you don't use Word's grammar checker?
Yeah, turn off Word's grammar checker. Turn on their spell check.
Exactly.
Spell check is nice. It doesn't catch everything, and
Yeah.
it won't catch the homophones or the other one. But I'm the talent. I'm the pretty thing. Stuff in the
They're
words
there,
I don't
you know.
know. It just you just write it, and no. So yeah, yay, Matt's coming back. So yeah, that's the advice, right? You turn off the grammar checker, turn on the spell checker, and you'll catch 90% of it.
And if you're going to use grammar checker, about the only one that's even worth using is a program you pay for, and it's called Ginger. Now, Ginger will catch stuff like if you put the question mark after he asked, it'll tell you it doesn't go there. But the problem is that program's designed for ESL students, English as a Second Language students. And it's a pretty good program. Now, I wouldn't rely on it as far as fixing your grammar. Excuse me. It catches a lot of punctuation errors. But Word, I don't know what buffoon put that grammar checker together now, but they're an idiot.
I think they're just like, wouldn't it be swell if we had a grammar checker? Okay, let's just throw one in. Isn't that how Microsoft does everything? Wouldn't it be swell if we did this? Oh, okay, here you go.
Yeah, and I don't know. They should have had an English major do it, because the stuff that it tells you to do. Fix this sentence. This is passive voice. Word it like this.
The wording is just like it's a weird flip of what you just said that makes no sense. Yeah, I like to click on that every now and then. Yeah,
it's like English as a second language sentence.
That's a lot of fun. Yeah, turn off your grammar checker. Don't use grammar checker. Yeah.
It's wrong.
It's not. Yeah, it's not good. And write the way people talk. That's another. Sean has taught it. Matt and I will probably go on and on about how Sean has taught us so much good stuff. One of the things Sean was like, even in your narration in the prose, you write the way the people talk, and it makes it easier for your readers to read. And suddenly you're getting people saying, "Hey, you're such a great writer," and you're like, "Oh, my editor just taught me this trick." So it had nothing to do.
Well, too many writers. Matt, can you hear us?
Oh, we may have lost
Is
him
Matt
again.
hearing us? I don't think he's hearing us.
Did we lose him again?
Yeah,
Oh, no,
I'm losing you guys again.
you were frozen there for a minute. Yeah, no.
I think a lot of writers develop a little Napoleon complex in a way. They want to appear grand, and so they write like they think it makes them look like they're smart and look like they're a writer. And I always question that. It's like, you don't talk like this when we're having a conversation in instant message. So why are you talking like this in your book?
Right. We hear about writers who just have beautiful prose and everything, and that's great. That's certainly something to shoot for. But readability is the very first thing, and I think even those writers who have beautiful prose will tell you it's the readability that makes it that pulls the whole book together. You can forget a lot about a book's readability. Because it just fades to the background. It's such an easy read, and then the plot and the characters all come forward.
Right.
Or not. I just make stuff up as
No, well, you're absolutely right. If you're struggling to read something, to understand what the author has written, then you're going to lose a lot of the plot, and you're going to lose the characters, because you're trying to figure out what it is that they want you to what they want you to understand. That's one of the reasons why, for me, commas are very important, and punctuation is very important. Important because it helps the brain splice the data. It helps us see what, sometimes you'll read a sentence, you're like, wait a minute, what did that author mean there? And all it needed was just one little comma, just a little comma.
Or not a comma,
in this
right?
one spot, or not a comma, right, or not a comma. Sometimes they get over happy and they put commas where they're not supposed to be, and then leave out the commas where they're supposed to be. Did you ever want to hit him, Sean? Did you ever want to slap Rob?
Well, Rob and I have known each other for a while, so
I am a humbler man now after the first book, and much so after the second, when I applied everything and Sean didn't have to come back and beat me over the head with it. So, but every now and then I'm like, I'm the author, damn you! That's how it's supposed to read, right, man? Right? You got my back, man. You know what it's like.
Well, see, Rob teaches debate, so sometimes we've had these conversations that just end with, "You're never going to teach me this because I just don't get it."
Well, I still don't get whatever that was. I forget what it was. It was
I know what it was
because she's got the eidetic memories.
Yeah. Well, and what I don't get the theory of it. I don't get why it's right, but you just told me, hey, this is right, and I'm like, okay. But then you were insisted on I knowing why. I don't get why it's right. I'll do it any way you tell me so that it's a good book. But that's what it came down to. Yeah.
The thing is, if I can get you to see why you shouldn't do it, then it's that little voice over your shoulder. Oh yeah, this is why I shouldn't do that. And it'll make your writing of your next draft easier, but you're not the only one that has problems with that.
Yeah, just as long as I get it right. I'm kind of like at the testing phase now. Like if I just get the test right, I don't care why the answer's right. I just want the test to be okay. I'm a terrible author. I admit it. I'm horrible to work with. Just awful.
Well, see, the thing is we're both stubborn, so it's kind of this, I must win the debate,
I hope I don't do that so much anymore. I try to be easier to work with. Just
over that one issue.
I just don't get it. I can't wrap my head around. I think it's something to do with voice, right? It's passive voice or something.
It's the filter word.
Yeah, I no longer. That's where I just created a list, and this is a great thing to do. When your editor comes back and is like, "Hey, you use this all the time," well, you just put that on a list, and I've got a list of 20 words you gave me, and now what I do is I just go through and I do a global search on that word. And then I read the sentence and make certain, see if the sentence makes sense or not, or if I can remove the word. And most times I can remove the word, and amazingly, the sentence is much clearer. And it's I don't know why, but it's, but that's a great trick.
My instinct is to, when somebody doesn't get something, to teach them why it's wrong.
Yeah. Some of us just want to be handed a fish, Sean. We don't want to be taught how.
Yes, but you'll only eat for a day, Rob, if you're not taught how.
If you give me a fish every day, then I don't have this problem. Yeah. No. I had a point somewhere there, but I don't know what.
It
went away. I always lose with Sean. I
was going to say you lost the debate.
I always lose with Sean. Sean says, okay, you get 2 or 3 where you can tell me you're not going to change it, and then that is it. And okay.
Does that sound familiar, Matt?
I don't think it ever came to that close to blows. Yeah.
Well, you get your stats, and I give you 2 or 3 where you could say, put that little stat out there, and I want to leave this. And unless it's something that's blaring grammatical error, I'm like, okay, I'll give you that. You can keep that. But when it gets over that, then people start saying, no, that's not, I want it that way. I did that on purpose.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You're like, no, you didn't. You know?
You're just saying it because you don't want to change it. It's got to be some work to change it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the great things about working with an author more than once, as you get to know that person as an author, you learn, you talk to each of the authors differently. Like I know with Rob, I can put out in the comment, come on, what were you thinking? You know?
Yeah, I saw that, Matt. Sean, something black went across your screen, and I'm like, I wonder what that was. And there it is. It's up on the side now, and it's kind of flickering into the.
Yeah.
Is it her cat or is it her raccoon?
It's gone.
It's gone now.
Raccoon's locked up.
It's gone now, but
It was actually a fly.
Oh.
We had the door open when they brought.
We're
I
thinking,
had the door open earlier, and it's like, oh, I'm letting flies in. That was stupid, you know.
we're thinking it's a demon.
Oh, it could be.
That's right. We need Dell. We need Dell, right? Send it Dell.
Zool is in the laundry room.
Take care of that. He doesn't do goals, but
And I know, like with Matt, I don't think I'd get as snarky with Matt as I do with Rob.
Whoa! What is? Matt, how do you rate? How do you rate not getting started? What's up? Is Matt
Not
here?
as snarky.
Matt hear us?
I hear you. Not snarky.
Oh, okay. Just not to, you don't get snark from Sean? What did you do? You pay her off? What's the?
No. I think I tend to agree with you a lot of times. There's only been a few times where I've been really adamant. Like I don't want
There's that fly back again.
I was
to
going to
change
say,
this.
oopsie, he's cutting
Oh, we're
out.
gonna lose Matt.
This is why I think
Right, Matt
I
makes
think,
that great point about kill your
Facial
darlings,
changes,
right? That's
so.
and you don't know it until
Yeah.
they actually show up, and you didn't realize. Like you have some great, clever turn of phrase, and you just feel like this is the height of prosaic moment in your book. But your book is urban fantasy, and it's all guns and stuff blazing away. It doesn't make sense to have that moment in there or that turn of phrase. It's clever and poetic, but it's not. That's not the feel of the book, and that's what a good editor, a good publisher does for you. I think that's where there's so many indie authors out there, and I think they lose something by not having a really good editor, one who supports them through the whole process. They fear that their voice is going to get lost.
And I think that's one thing that I try to do is I try to let the author keep their voice. And it's really easy as an editor to steamroll over the top and say, no, make it all this way and do that. You don't want them to sound like you. You want them to sound like them, and you want their story to be what they want it to be. So you got to get that hammer out, and sometimes, you got to get those electric paddles out because they need some CPR. But at the same time, you want to let them keep their voice. I know, Rob, you had that review that said, the kind of the same thing, that so many books you see, they're all the same because they've been edited to just be grammatically perfect, but not to be the author's voice and let the story come through. Mm-hmm. It's a hard balance sometimes, especially when the author's not getting something and you just want to rewrite that paragraph and say, no, this is how you do it, Yeah. And not so much with you and Matt, but I've had other authors that just don't get what to me seems like a really simple concept. And I have to step back and say, okay, why aren't they getting it? What am I not explaining that they're not getting it? So it's a process, and sometimes you just have to trust the process.
And I have to tell you, Marcy, like before I entered the process, I thought, oh, editor, that sounds okay. That sounds like a fun job. I could do that maybe after I do a few books. And then when I went through the process, I'm like, no, I never want to do that. That sounds... Because it's not just saying like, oh, this phrase doesn't work, or this, your character did something weird there. It, like, Sean does such a good job of teaching you, or at least, she puts the whole effort into helping you learn why a thing is right or wrong. So yeah, it immediately turned me off of the idea that I ever want to be an editor. I'm like, no.
It takes a special person to be an editor, and I resemble that person. And so does Sean. And there are times when it is frustrating because it's like you have to rethink how you're going to show this person so that they understand. I was talking to someone today, and there was this run-on sentence, and we needed to split it up. And then she couldn't understand why I was saying, well, this really needs to happen here because of this, this, and this, and this. She's like, la, 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 la. I spent 2 years in English trying to figure out how I could get out of the last 2 years of English. I don't want to. It's going to go right in one ear and out the other, and you explaining it to me doesn't make a difference. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to explain it to you so you understand, so that if it ever comes up in your writing, you know how to change it and you know why it's not working. Because the way it was set up, it sounded like there were actually two. The subject of the beginning of the sentence was actually doing the second action, and that wasn't the case. It was someone else doing the second action, and for whatever reason, she's just like, no. I didn't like English when I was in it. Don't want to know. I know how to read. I know how to write, but I know how to speak, but I don't want to know the rules, and I don't want you to explain them to me.
I'm curious because sometimes I get embarrassed. Like when Sean sends me back edits, I'm like, I'm a little embarrassed, and I want to defend my choice. And then I sit back and I'm like, no, Sean's not trying to embarrass you. I wonder if you run into that with other writers. Like, do you think it's like the arrogance is born out of embarrassment? And they're like, but I speak English and my degree's in English.
I think so.
Yeah. I wondered if that was the case.
And I've worked with some authors who don't want to tell you that, hey, I don't know what the crap you're talking about, to say that to me. And I always tell authors, tell me if you don't understand what I'm saying, because we're just going to keep going round and round on it. Because if I'm saying, put a comma after the lead-in prepositional phrase, and you don't know what a lead-in prepositional phrase is, and you haven't looked it up on Google, or if you have, you don't understand what Google said, I'm just going to keep telling you to put the comma after the lead-in prepositional phrase, and, I'm going to be ready to pour myself a shot of whiskey because you just won't fix it,
And they won't. I don't know what it is. But they were too embarrassed to tell you. I don't know I should know what that is, but I don't know.
And I try really hard not to use a bunch of technical terms. I mean, I could go through and use all the technical terms, and I'm sure that I have a lot of authors that would get all of the technical terms. But I'll put in, this is called a whatever, and please don't do it anymore, or something. I've had to use a big, huge hammer and put in all caps, never, ever do this. This is not correct, to get it through some author's head that you can't do that. And the answer is not to respond to me in the comment, I wanted it that way.
Surefire way to piss Sean off.
I've gotten comments that say things like, I'll say, why is this spelled this way? I wanted it that way. I don't want an answer in the comments. I'm trying to draw your attention to it. Just fix it, because I could be a snark monster, and
The upside is after you work with Sean on one book and you work on the second book, you're like, oh, that's just Sean helping me out.
That's true. Well, some people, but not the people in this room. World.
Well, I've worked with I've been doing this for a long time. I mean, I worked for one of the big major publishers as an independent contractor editor, where they mailed you the manuscript and you used the red and blue pencil to go through that manuscript, and then you sent it back. And so that's kind of where I started out. I worked for a magazine writing a column for a while. So I've been doing this for a long time. I've seen every kind of mistake there is, you know, and every kind of odd thing. And even then, it comes from, you don't want to change it. You wrote it, and in your mind, it's perfect. And you do need, even I need somebody to point out, this doesn't make sense. What? Even in my own stuff, that's why even editors need an editor. You know, that's why I try to teach and try to use the best method possible to teach somebody something that's going to work for them. And I tend to try to, I think I get a pretty good feel for people. I know Matt a little bit better now, so maybe he'll start getting some snark on the next one.
Watch it, Matt. You're in trouble. I wonder if he wants them again.
The snark is fun, though. Like half the time the snark is like, you know, you should know better, and I should know better. But one of the things that I've found is I want to take all the advice Sean gives me. But I also have this weird style of writing, and what I found is that if I just write through my style, I incorporate as much of what Sean's given me as I can. But things like the eyes, that's something that's, for whatever reason, is just so ingrained in me to use the eyes as a means of conveying emotion and moving plot. And so I write that out. I just go ahead and write it out, and then it's on my list. And then I go back and I look at all the places where I put in eyes, and I make certain, do I actually mean that the eyes, you know, flicked across the room because a demon plucked him out of somebody's skull? Or do I mean that she cast her gaze over there and rolled her eyes up, you know, sarcastically or something? So, but the snark is good because,
that's the process, is learning. We say so much in our speech, we use things, oh yeah, my eyes roamed all over him. Really? You know, writing is literal meaning. People read it and they have the words, and those are literal words. They're not the little euphemisms that we use, even though those are fun. But if you get too many, then pretty soon you have disembodied body parts wandering all over the place. Snake eyes! You know?
He ran his eyes up and down her body. Ew!
Yeah, ew, sticky, you know.
Deadly, she feels slimed.
Yeah. So it goes with that teaching thing, to try to teach why it's better not to use that. Even though everybody knows what you mean by, you know, her eyes wandered all over the room. When you take those things out, the writing is stronger. So even though you could leave it in there and people might understand what it means, and nobody's going to think, yeah, she plucked her eyes out and threw them around the room, the writing becomes stronger when you have to stop falling back on that crutch. Stop falling back on the common usage, and give some strength to the writing when you have to think about, what did I really mean? Oh, her gaze wandered around the room. And the writing and the words become stronger for it.
Right, Matt?
Yes.
You can hear us.
I am still here.
You disappeared. I'm like, where did he go? And then he reappeared.
Matt's going, I'm thinking about all those disembodied body parts I had to do.
I really was. Sometimes he throws his hands up in the air.
Yeah, he throws his hands up in the air. Whee! Off we go.
Just like in Labyrinth, they just throw body parts around. Yeah, and that's kind of the goal, that the language is so. I don't want to say precise, but it flows so well that it fades to the background, and then the story comes out. Because we are conveying through a medium, so my head is conveying through words on a piece of dead wood to you, through your eyes back into your head, and that's a lot of gateways to go through. So, but writing has the ability to convey that, and when we're doing it well, it fades to the background, and the characters come out, and the story comes out, and that's the best part of it. All right, buy links. Okay.
Okay, so the other thing, make sure you have your links. It's 5:16. I don't know how long it's going to take you to get over to Quest, Rob.
Yeah, I need to go about now.
Okay, so hi. And I have a mom coming to pick up her daughter. So just a quick where people can find you, Rob Roy. You're at Rob Roy McCandless with one S on Twitter. I see that. And what about on Facebook?
On Facebook, I'm Rob Roy McCandless. You can find me as a friend. And then I also have an author page. It's R.A. McCandless or Rob Roy McCandless. I'm so horrible about being consistent on that. But Rob Roy McCandless, if you punch that into the internet, you will find me. I'm the only one. But the author is R.A. McCandless.
Other than that one that died.
Other than the one that died, who apparently I bear a resemblance to, age and everything. So weird.
So it was your
someday we have to
doppelganger.
find that obit. So yeah. And I'm on Twitter and that's everything. Like if you're looking for me, Rob Roy McCandless, you will find me. I'm pretty much the only one. Yeah. So.
Yeah, if you look for S.R. Howen, S.R. Howen, in a Google search, you'll find me all over the place too. So.
And John Carlin Shea for me.
Well, write that out. I see it up there, but be sure you write it out. There you go. You write it out, and that's also at Facebook as well, on Facebook. John Carlin Shea.
Yeah, on Facebook,
Yes.
I'm S.R. Howen, but it's all run together. So.
Great. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming, and this was a lot of fun. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I have been doing this weekly, but we are going to mix next week because next week is next week is Christmas Eve, and I am going to be busy with my family. So, but I hope to be back on New Year's Eve at 4 p.m. with another round of interesting and fun people. And I want to thank all of you for coming. Again, my name is Marcy Bond. I am the founder and CEO of Wild Child Publishing and Phrase Power. And these are my I have three awesome authors and an awesome editor here with me. And if you want to watch this again and you didn't get to see all of it, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/MarcyBond. Really easy to find me, and it will be up there as soon as I am able to do that. And here we go. I'm putting it in the side so you can find it there. And hopefully you will come back, and be sure to subscribe because we'll be back. And thanks for coming on. Bye-bye. Have a Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
That's what, and happy holidays.
Yep, thanks for coming, everyone.